Wednesday each week for your chance to win tickets to see your Minnesota Wild in an upcoming game. Wild Wednesdays are presented by Jim Beam, a crowd pleaser since 1795.
We love Wild Wednesdays, a.k.a. Wing It Wednesdays on the Common Man program. Mark Rosen will be with us on Wednesday. He'll also be with us tomorrow. PJ Fleck Show at noon. We're in at 1. We're being 10 to be 9. Then Mark Rosen joins us on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, we're all out. Wednesday, of course, is Thanksgiving, where you think about all the things you want to be thankful for. Then Thursday's Thanksgiving, where you give thanks for all the things you're thankful for. Then on Friday, you kind of sort of review it all. It's called Thanksgiving. You think about all the things you should be thankful for. We'll be out Friday. I'm assuming 10 to be Friday will be a lot of college football on this radio station. You know what the schedule says? Is there, I don't know how important it is.
We got Gophers, Wisconsin Friday.
That's right. Gophers, Wisconsin.
11 a.m. game.
So we have an early game, so that game will be on this radio. Speaking of college football, let's start there, 10 to be. We just heard from PJ Fleck. I do tend to agree. I think for the most, I know this is, you get teased for this when you'll say you think the Wild, outplayed the other team and lost or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do think there are cases where that is true. And I think the Gophers played as well as Penn State and maybe even outplayed them for most of the game until it came down to crunch time. And that's when we tried some goofy play where we wanted to throw it to the left tackle. And then when Penn State got the ball, with a 1-point lead, they ran the clock. They decided, the coach, am I right? Is the head coach's last name for Penn State, his name Franklin? I think that's his last name. And they asked him post-game, why the fake punt? Why going for it on 4th down 2 other times? You didn't do the fake punt on 4th down.
Yeah, James Franklin.
Yeah, and they did that. They were deep in their own territory. And I don't remember exactly how many minutes were left. Still plenty of time in the football game. I think it might have been 4-ish. And they decided to fake the punt. I think got something like 32 yards on it, and then they went for it on 2 other occasions and basically just ran out the clock. And Coach talked about Coach Fleck, as I like to call him. I'm having respect for him, so I call him Coach Fleck. PJ said, wish the game wouldn't have ended, wish we'd had 10 more minutes, and I get that because that's the old cliche. We didn't lose, we just ran out of time. But the fake punt caught the Gophers off guard. Then they went for it on 2 other 4th downs. And what Franklin said was, look, and I'm paraphrasing the exact quote. I could look it up. It's not that important to have the exact quote. But he said, we just felt like we wanted to end the game on our terms. We didn't want to give it back to them and then because the Vikings, the Gophers offense was playing pretty well. They did some nice things. I will say this about Gopher football, Tennessee. It's more fun watching when you got a quarterback that can throw it around the yard a little bit. I love defense. And so I will never... And this isn't a commentary about defense. This is about offense. The Gopher offense up until this year has pretty much always been just run. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind it if you can win doing that. If you can run it 40 times a game and your defense is shut down and you're winning a lot of games 13, 10, 20. As long as you're winning football games and you get into the top 25 and you're competing for conference championships and maybe even getting a chance to get into the postseason tournament, then I don't mind running it 40 times a game. But when you're not doing that, it gets to be, it's not a lot of fun to watch. It's just not. And now with Brosmer, now he had mistakes. He had a fumble, I think, and he throw an int. But he throws it around the ball yard, and he's pretty good. He's got a good arm. He's fun to watch, and it makes the team more multi-dimensional. Who's their wide receiver? Is it Danny Jackson? Did you see the one catch he made? He made a catch late in the game. It was... Brosmer threw a dime over the middle into double coverage, and Jackson got absolutely walloped. How he
While he's catching it, how he hung on to that football, I'll never know. But that was a great catch, and they're more. Would you agree they're more fun to watch this year than pretty much any other year under PJ Fleck? 100%, and that's why it's encouraging to see them have some of the games they've had. Right, they take Penn State down to the wire. They came back, almost beat Michigan, but you're also like, we're not going to have Max Brosmer after this year. Yep. And what are the odds we're going to be able to replace that level of quarterback? I think he's really good. I said with you a couple weeks ago, I think he's the best Gopher quarterback I've seen in my lifetime. And
I think you're right.
Even the Penn State game, it's like, the fumble was just
no reason.
Yeah.
It was an unforced fumble.
Right,
He wasn't hit by the other opposing team. Just lost it for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to hand it off too, right?
And it was
dropped out.
Yeah, it was his first interception in a long time. He'd gone a long time without an interception. It's like, but just the margin of error is not as. But I think that's why you can be critical of the trick play they try to do, right? Like, I am the last person to try to suck creativity out of a head coach. I want them to do creative stuff. And just because one goes south, I'm not going to be the guy, whoa, why are you doing a trick play there, right? But in that instance, I thought Brosmer was going so well that I want to keep the game in his hands.
Yep.
And you're kind of taking it out of his hands a little bit by trying to do that tomfoolery and skullduggery.
Yep,
so
I agree.
I'm not critical of the play because I want PJ Fleck to be creative moving forward. But Brosner was going so well, I would just be like, drop him back and let him go through his reads, and he's going to make the right read and make the right throw. It seems like every single time.
I think you're absolutely right. I absolutely agree with you, and this will be your first of the week. I've been getting a little stingy with them, but I'm going to go ahead.
Stingy, or I just haven't been delivering them?
Well, maybe that's it. I guess I didn't want to say that. I'm trying to be a more kindler, gentler common man, but I'm going to give you a brilliant sticker there. Speaking of Michigan, baby brother Peter will not be home for Thanksgiving because Friday at Big House in Columbus, the game. And
against the team from up north?
Yeah,
how do they call it?
It's the team from up north.
Yeah.
I think it was No, it wasn't Ring Lardner. Who was it? Legendary boxing writer said about a fight. And which fight was it? Boy, I have a bad memory. And it's not. I've decided. I think I figured this out last week. Then it's not early onset. It's the remnants of consuming a whole multicolored galaxy of uppers and downers and screamers and laughers over the years. But he said, fight, there was no fight. And I think because it was such a lopsided victory in a prize fight, I think you're going to be able to say the same thing for this upcoming football game. The game, there is no game. I think Michigan is going to get destroyed. And it's not because I'm so high on Ohio State. It's just Michigan isn't very good. I mean, they went from winning the Natty last year under Jimmy Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy to, are they 6-5, 5-6? They're just an average, ordinary team. And Ohio State, let's face it, they're number 2 in the country, and the only game they've lost is to the number 1 team in the country in their conference against Oregon.
Michigan 6-5.
Yeah, I remember baby brother Peter when Ohio State lost to Oregon early in the season. I kind of chided him a little bit, and he said, "Oh, it's no big deal." He goes, it's really hard to win every game all season long." He goes, "We're going to see him 2 more times." And I thought, what do you mean 2 more times? And the point he was getting at was, we'll see him in the Big Ten championship, and we'll probably see him again in the Natty. So Pete won't be there, but Ohio State took on undefeated Indiana, 5th-ranked Indiana this weekend at Big House. And there have been questions about the Hoosier schedule, Tennessee, and getting to 10-0. Their head coach, his first name escapes me. His last name is Signetti. He's got that viral quote when he was asked by a reporter, "Well, how do you think you can continue to for the team to play like, to keep this up?" Something to that extent. Or how are you going to get recruits? And he goes, "I win. Google me." Well, on the scoreboard after the game, I was going back and forth. No. When did the Gophers play? Yeah, they played a 2:30 game. So what game was I going back? I was 2 games I was going back. Oh, Nebraska. Because Deuce's club was playing. They became bowl eligible. Think about this, Tennessee. My 2 boys' teams, one's trying to get to the national championship. The other, Deuce's club, the Cornhuskers, they're just happy to finally be going to a bowl game. I texted Deuce.
Love that one.
Dunkin' Donuts Bowl, here we come. And he's excited. So you got to start somewhere. Their head coach, Matt Rule, said, "This is the last time we're going to celebrate 6 wins." I like that. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if obviously what he's saying is, no, this is just the beginning, right? We're celebrating 6 wins because we haven't had 6 wins since 2016, I think, the last time they were in a bowl game. But let's pause. I want to continue a little bit on the Indiana Ohio State game. There's some controversy involved in that.
A couple of other college football notes I want to get to. I want to ask about the Wild. Need to get to the Wolves, after that embarrassing performance where the team was sniping at each other on the floor in that loss to Toronto. They had a little team meeting, I think, to try to straighten things out. And, of course, more Viking football talk. And I mentioned a bowl game tonight, so a lot to get to. We'll take a break and come back with more after this here on The Fan.
Stick around following every noon Vikings game this season for Vikings Overtime, hosted by Meat Sauce, presented by Park Chrysler Jeep in Burnsville. Catch them all right here on KFAN and on the free iHeartRadio app.
I think there's a Meat Sauce Overtime episode that he won't be able to participate in, and Chad Abbott asked if I'd like to.
Did he laugh when he asked you?
Well, I think I was doing the bit where he was once again reminding me that I'm the only person on the air staff that doesn't do anything Sunday for the Vikings. Because even Barrero does his Sunday show.
Yeah.
And that might not be, attached to the Vikings game. He is there he's on the air prior to the Vikings game. And I said, well, you already booted me off.
I was going to say.
The pregame like 4 or 5 different times. He said, well, how'd you like to do overtime? I go, what's that? He goes, Sauce does a show called Overtime. It's like after Vikings Fan Line, right?
Yes.
Are people still wanting to discuss the game after that? I mean, Viking Fan Line, when I did it, lasted like 9 hours. It'd be midnight and we're still taking phone calls. It's like, are people that wrapped up in it? But he asked me and I just had to, I go, you're breaking up. I'm sorry. I'm not coming in and doing it. I don't need to anymore. It's going to be, I'm like Rosen. All right, I'm not as legendary as Mark, but I'm just not going to go down that road. Someone, when we played the Paul's intercepted talkbacks, there has to be would this be better turnover talkbacks? Does that sound
I like
better?
that.
Turned over talkbacks? This person says, are these onion type talkbacks?
I always love that one.
And this one says, just me or all the PA's fans seem to breathe very heavily through their mouths. You know what else somebody said? Oh, I wish I could find this one again. It's and I don't know if this is if this was PA's take, but somebody when we started talking about Daniel Jones possibly becoming a Minnesota Viking, has PA this text messenger is basically, here's what it says. I found it. Here it goes. Let me guess. If we get Danny Jones, PA will go from talking crap about him to finding all these great things about him. Had he been downplaying Danny Jones and ripping him?
I don't know.
It will be interesting to see if that is the case.
How the tide turns?
Yeah, and a lot of people have been critical of Daniel Jones, including you and I.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think anybody. You're sixth overall. You didn't make it to the playoffs. You beat the Vikings. Somebody else, some other cheap shotter said, sup, guys, maybe KOC wants Daniel Jones to get intel from him on how he destroyed the Vikings in the wild card game. But it would be interesting if PA was, critical of Daniel Jones, what he'll say now if he becomes part of the Vikings and KOC's all behind him. Think he'll change it all, or how will he spin that? Be interesting.
Well, I will say, I'm not a Daniel Jones guy.
Right.
I don't think he should have been drafted where he was. And even the playoff game he had against the Vikings and that season, I felt like that was a lot of system. The system was working well around him. I don't think it was Daniel Jones carrying on the back. But I could make an argument to defend Daniel Jones. And my argument would be, look at Sam Darnold, right? He was bad in New York, bad in Carolina. Was a backup last year. Never had receivers to throw to. Didn't have good offensive line play. A lot of those same things could be said about Daniel Jones. A couple different head coaches there, different coordinators. And tell me who their best wide receiver was while he was there.
That is correct.
They've had one of the league's worst wide receiver cores. I know they finally drafted Malik Neighbors this year, and I think he's going to be a stud, but he's still a rookie. And they they got him while jettisoning Saquon Barkley. Like, he hasn't had a lot to throw to there. So, is it possible all of a sudden he comes over here to the quarterback whisperer? And he's got JJ and TJ and JA
yeah.
and AJ.
Well,
he could be better here. I've seen it with Darnold, so I guess I could see it with Daniel Jones.
You probably remember this when people were critical of Daniel Jones. You know, me being the gadfly, I was talking about I still think this guy's got a great chance. And I also stuck up for the Jets quarterback too. Most of it's tongue in cheek, but from what you said, sometimes it does take longer for a player to develop. This text message says, I'm sure PA talked poorly about Sam Darnold at some point too. Opinions are allowed to change. Yeah, but what we're talking about here is not
why they're changing.
Why they're changing. You can change your opinion when you go, you know what? This guy looks like he's pretty good. It'll be interesting if he has been hard on Daniel Jones, and then we sign him if it changes on a dime, on a Danny dime, where it's like, no, I kind of think this guy's got a chance to be pretty good. It's like, well, are you saying that because you really believe that? Or are you changing your mind because now the Vikings have now acquired him? And that would be the interesting thing to see. So Ohio State beats Indiana, hands them their first loss. Indiana, I don't know, did the rankings come out today? How far did they drop? I don't know. Their 10 wins were against questionable competition.
What rankings do you like to use? ESPN, Associated Press?
I'm usually Associated Press guy, I think, when it comes to college football. They were the ones that would always name the national champion. Associated Press back in the olden days. So if you can find AP.
Indiana's down to 7.
Okay. Did you watch any of that game?
No.
Okay. So here's what happens. So Indiana gets out to a 7-0 lead, which you expect that sometimes, right? Even though they're 10th in the country, they're playing number 2. They're an underdog because, again, not everybody is on board with Indiana yet because of the weak schedule they've played. You're on the road. You're at Big House. And you jump out, and you're all fired. You know how college kids tend to be. Someone's probably jumping up and down in the middle of the circle going, who dat going to beat them Saints? Who dat going to beat them Buckeyes? And they got all fired up. They came up. They marched down the field. They get up 7-0. After that, it was all Ohio State. Indiana scored late, makes it 31-15. Ohio State gets the ball. Somebody breaks away. The kid slides for a stop at the 1-yard line instead of scoring. So announcer guys start talking about what a smart, unselfish kid going down so they can run out the clock. Well, they were already up 31-15, and there were only like 20 seconds left in the game. It's not like if he scored, they're going to give it back, and Indiana's going to score 3 scores. Of course, the Bears did that. But anyway, you know what? We beat the Bears. A lot of people can look down on us. The Bears were who we thought we were. We almost let them off the hook. But that's what Day went with after the game, Tennessee, because they blindsided him right after the game. Reporter gal asked him, what does this win mean? You know, something, just some, it's just a regular question. But the second one, she did say, what about the tutty at the end of the game? And I think it kind of caught Day off guard. I think his name, what's his first name?
Is it Ryan?
Ryan Day. I think he's in his 3rd year at Ohio State. And he says, well, you never know. It's a top 5 game. And then I think he realized that's stupid. You're not, top 5 game. They could come back and win because that's what he was that's what he was suggesting. And then he said something about, we just want to show people this is Ohio State football or something silly like that. But when because they ended up scoring a final touch because after the kids slid down, they ran one play, got stopped, then they ran another and scored. Kicked the extra point, 38-15. And you could see Signetti, the Indiana coach, he kind of took his hand and went like this. He just went to the other sideline like, come on, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Because I know the old stop them, but there is sort of an unwritten rule in college football, whether you like it or not. At that point, you're supposed to just take a knee. They were waving the white flag. Indiana wasn't using their timeouts at that point anymore. So I did think it kind of had a bad look for Day. It'll soon be forgotten. With Day's issue is, Tennessee, the last, is this his 4th year? Could you look up and see? I think this is his 4th year as the Ohio State head coach. His first 3 years are considered by most Ohio State fans to be abject failures. You know why? You didn't beat Michigan. Or, hold on, I'm sorry. Because you didn't beat the school up north.
This is his 6th year, though technically 7th, because he went 3-0 in 2018. So he must have taken over. I don't know if he was an interim at the time or if he just took over then. But
well, what's his record against? I thought he was 0-3 against Michigan. Now my whole bit. The school up north. I know he's lost, I think, the last 3, including last year when they were in the running for a chance to get into that 14 playoff for a national championship. If you're the coach at OSU or you're the coach at the school up north, losing to your arch rival in the game is basically it's a disaster of a season.
Michigan's won the last 3.
Okay.
Ohio State won the previous 2. I don't know if he was coaching.
See, I don't think he was
the
coaching
2018 one.
I don't think he was coaching. I could have sworn, maybe I'm making this all up to try to make it a better story. You know me, we like to embellish.
Yeah, so Urban Meyer retired December 4th of 2018.
Okay.
And that game was played November 24th of 2018. So Ryan Day won the first one and has lost the last 3.
Oh. Okay, then because I thought he'd never beaten Michigan at all. So he's 1-3, but he's lost his old. If you lose to Michigan or vice versa, it's considered the season's a failure. Michigan's an ordinary team. I think Ohio State's going to, if you're going to run it up on Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers, they're going to just rub Michigan's nose in it. I would say this has got...
The team up north.
The team up north. This has got 56-6 written all
It's going to go south for the team up north is what you're saying.
I think you're absolutely right. Another break. We'll touch on some other odds and ends. Other side of the break. One more segment to go. Common Man program here on The Fan.
It's a special pre-Thanksgiving Wednesday feast. Join us at Buffalo Wild Wings in Chanhassen on Wednesday for the feast. PA in charge will get you ready for Sunday's battle against the Cardinals. Plus, great food to be had and lots of prizes up for grabs. Doors open at 8 a.m. Get the full details at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Double 13-14 pass Common Man program. It's been a fast-paced, action-packed, controversial Common Man program. Not responsible for accidents. You better hang on to your hat, buckle your seatbelt, batten down the hatches, and elevate your scrotum. Let's go back and check our KFAN talkback. It's easy to find. You go to the iHeartRadio app, search stations, find the fan, tap the microphone icon in the corner of the screen. You have 30 seconds or less to deliver us a message. Here's one that just came in moments ago to the KFAN talkback.
Yeah, PA in Nordo. Hey, this is Brody from Tasca. Yeah, I was at the game in Chicago yesterday, and I've been listening to PA call games forever, and he's the best in the business. But I had tickets yesterday where I could actually see him calling the game. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Just the magical presence that he has. I think maybe you guys should start doing video of all those games so people can not only hear his wise words, but see them. All right, Skull Bikes.
So visually, you can enjoy the Paul Allen Project. Not only can you listen to the game on the iHeartRadio app or on FM 100.3, the Fan are on. We have the largest NFL football radio network in the country. There are more stations that carry Vikings football than any other NFL team. You can also watch the Paul Allen Project.
He's not only the greatest in the world from an audio perspective, but watching him, he's the best in the world. I wouldn't even have to hear him.
Well,
just seeing him.
He does get a little crazy sometimes, visually. I mean, wasn't that LeBron James deemed him a national treasure after watching that little 10-minute piece that the Vikings put together of PA calling a game, and it wasn't just his audio, it was the visual too. And
I know PA was embarrassed about that.
Well, we all know he was. I mean, I've known Paul for a long time, and he was certainly embarrassed about it. Broadcasting live, by the way, from the 651 Carpets Plus studios. Go to 651carpetsplus.com for all your carpeting needs. This text message comes and says, my fear is that someone on the morning show will block someone who contributes text material, which gets used heavily by Commodore Dan Barrero. Are there any safeguards in place to prevent one show from accidentally hampering another show in this manner, I don't think you have to worry about the morning show blocking any text material. My guess is they never even
don't check it.
They don't check the text line.
No.
They don't check any of that. Emails, text, they never have and never will. I've often wondered about that. I've talked to Burr about he's blocked people before. I don't know if PA does. I don't think PA checks it. I think it's Nordo that checks the text line. I think Barrero and I are the only two that do. I don't block people often. I've blocked a half a dozen. And my only rule is if you're using vulgar language, I'm sorry. That's not what we do. I mean, I know that, the world's a coarse place and, all bets are, what they try to say, the McAfee show, they have this thing. We'll use cuss words every once in a while because that's the way regular people talk. Well, yeah, but publicly, I don't think that's what you do. I'm not.
It's the manner in which you use it.
Yeah, and it's the manner in which you use it, exactly. And so I've blocked maybe half a dozen people, but it's only for that. If you disagree with me, I don't care. If you want to call me a knucklehead, I don't care. It's when you get crass and use vulgar language, then you're out. Sorry, and if you think that's a bad rule, too bad. I
would just say don't be a Richard.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm assuming if you're blocked, like if I block somebody, I'm assuming he's blocked from the text line for everybody. I don't know that, though. It's really simple. Just be... Go ahead. You can be critical of the host. I can't speak for anybody else. You can be critical of me and disagree with me, but just don't start. No,
there's a way to do it.
Yeah, just do it. Do it in a better. What am I trying to say? In a more civil manner would be the best way to do it. Tennessee, your guy, Coach Prime. They laid an egg this weekend. They had. Ranked 16th, 8-2 going into a game against Kansas, 4-6 Kansas at Kansas, and Buffalo's got it handed to them. Kansas dominated the game almost from the beginning. Now, full disclosure, Kansas set an NCAA record. I think they're the first FBS team to win 3 games against top 10 teams with a losing record. A team with a losing record to beat 3 ranked, or maybe it was just 3 ranked teams. Deion's team got it handed to them, and it was all there waiting for them. They could still get into the postseason tournament because I think their conference, Big 12, they get an automatic. I think are there 5 conferences, the Big 5, that get an automatic bid? Big 10, Big 12. I would assume, is the SEC still in business? I don't even know who's in business anymore, who's not. But 5 teams get an automatic bid. But Coach Prime's team, they're behind the 8 ball now. They obviously need to win against Oklahoma State on Friday, and they need a couple of other things to go their way because, like in a 4-way tie or a 3-way tie, they lose out. They can still get in. If they were to win and the other 3 teams that share a record with them all lose, they would. They're trying to get into the Big 12 championship game so they can get that automatic bid.
Yeah.
And I think I was again. Or
as if they just would have won out. I think they would have been in. Yeah.
I think people misunderstand me about it. I just like having fun at the people that are in love with like Tennessee. They're in love with Coach Prime because you watched them play football as one of your favorite players. But I don't think he's bad for college football. Apparently he can recruit. He just landed. Apparently the best quarterback recruit or second best quarterback recruit in the country. He got him to flip from USC. He's coming over to play with Coach Prime. He did a great job at his first stop, which was Jackson State or whatever. I don't remember. He did a great job. First year at Colorado, he went off to a 3-0 start. Or was that his second year? Then they went in the tank. They ended up going 4-8. Had a great start this year. Again, hadn't really beat anybody. They're sort of in that same boat I think Indiana's in, where you're winning games. Now, they did lose 2, though, as well.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a good game for. And he basically said that, Sanders said, and he's right. He goes, "We fumbled our opportunity. That was our chance. You win that game, and more than likely they're well on their way to winning a Big 12 championship. Then you get that automatic bid. They could still get an at-large bid, but I think it's going to be pretty hard now with 3 losses to get an at-large bid, even if they beat Oklahoma State
they don't get to the Big Ten championship and win it, I think they're out. And there's too many teams that are one-loss teams and a couple of undefeated teams. You're just not going to get in there with that.
Yeah,
so,
they're just not going to have the quality wins that the other teams that are going to be in the mix.
So they're going to be out, and maybe they can. And they're still not done yet. They're still not done, but
don't look good.
It doesn't look good at this point. It's the Harbaugh Bowl tonight, right? Jim against John.
Am I the only one that's
Chargers?
like super bored with the Harbaugh Bowl?
Yeah,
because I don't really like either of their personalities. I'm not a big John Harbaugh guy. I don't dislike him or hate him, but I don't know. I just feel like it's a manufactured story at this point. They've already played each other in a Super Bowl, for God's sakes.
But I do think it's interesting just because it's the brothers going against each other. It's unique. I think that's why people, and they're all, you're right. You're always looking for story angles. No, I'm not obsessed with it, but I do think it's interesting that it's hard enough to get a head coaching job in pro football to have brothers, two guys from the same family. But you're right. And even if Jim were to win tonight, it's the old, you talked about it last week when the Vikings lost to, was it when they lost to the Falcons in the NFC Championship game and then played them the next year, like in week 2? There was some situation where the Vikings, and everybody's going, revenge game. No, it's week 2. It's a regular season win, second week of the season's what's at stake, a win or a loss. A trip to the big game is the other one. So even if Jimmy were to win tonight, that certainly doesn't even the score as far as, gotcha, bro. Gotcha, little bro. That's not going to be the case. But it should be a good game. It's hard to argue with Jim's success. I mean, he must be able to coach. I've had this internal debate, and you and I have talked about it before, about how much does a coach mean to a team? Is there really his in and yours in and all that kind of a thing? And I think with Jim Harbaugh, he with San Francisco, he was wildly successful. We just mentioned he got to the big game, lost in the aforementioned Harbaugh Bowl there, but had a sterling regular season record and got to a big game. Goes to Michigan and leads him to a natty. And now he's got a team that has really underachieved. I think both you and I have always kind of rolled our eyes, shrugged our shoulders, and shook our head when everybody goes, a Chargers team is going to be one of the teams to beat. It's like, well, they've never been one. They've had moments where they look pretty good. And I do like their quarterback. The kid's got a ton of talent.
Yes.
You can't argue that. But they just haven't been able to put it all together. And now they were sub 500, I think, last year. And are they 7-4?
They're 7-3 right now.
7-3.
Now, I still think the jury's a little bit out on the Chargers just because I don't think they've played a very challenging schedule up until this point.
Okay.
They got wins over the Raiders, the Panthers, Broncos, Saints, Browns, Titans. The Bengals game was a good win last night, but last week. But their losses were to Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and Arizona. And I do look at their next 5 games on their schedule and go, all right, well, we're going to find out if the Chargers are for real or not because they got Baltimore tonight. I think Baltimore's going to win that one tonight.
Is that at Baltimore, did you say?
No, it's at L.A.
Okay.
But then they're got to go to Atlanta, go to Kansas City, Tampa Bay at home. I don't think Tampa Bay is a pushover. And then Denver's been kind of the team on the rise over the last 4 or 5 weeks here.
Everybody doubted Bo Nix. So what's Denver doing?
They finished with 2 cupcakes at the end, the Chargers do, so maybe they'll still backdoor their way into the playoffs because they've already set up this stuff. But I think clearly they're better than they've been, and the coach is pretty darn good, but I'm still not convinced on them. But I guess tonight they can convince me.
Who do you think is going to win tonight?
I think Harbaugh is going to win tonight.
No. Oh. Who did you say was going to win tonight?
Baltimore. Oh. I was wondering what you're trying to do there.
Do you know why I'm so high on Jim Rockford? Has nothing. Oh, I blew the line. I was going to say I'm so high on Jim Harbaugh, and it's not because of the regular. It's because
the khaki pants.
Yeah, it's not the case. He's a Jim Rockford fan.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet you $4. I'll take the Chargers.
By the way, you just lost $13 to Rosen.
I did?
Yes. It was one of those season-long bets on. Must have been whether the Vikings were going to be above 500 or not. I thought I saw it. I thought Power Trip Bet sent it to me.
Ooh.
Let me see if I can find it.
This text message says no conference is guaranteed a spot
Yeah.
in the tourney, but the Big Four, the Big 10, 12, SEC and AC are usually going to be in no matter what. Okay. Maybe that's how it works.
So Rosen won $13 from you as the Vikings will finish the regular season above 500. They're already guaranteed to be above 500.
How
So
is
you
it?
owe them $13.
Did I bet 13? That power trip bets, but I've never bet double digits with anybody. He must have heard that wrong.
Maybe it was 3 and he just accidentally, had fat fingers while typing and put the 1 next to it.
Are you willing to go $4 on tonight's game?
Yes. I get Baltimore?
Yeah, I got Jimmy Harbaugh and San Diego. You know who I have tonight? You Deuce. Or is it baby brother Peter?
That's Deuce.
San Diego Superchargers, San Diego Superchargers, San Diego Superchargers, San Diego Superchargers. Now what do you think? What do you think of that?
I don't know what to think of that. I think it's pretty.
By the way, Peter did one too. I guess I just don't play it as much. So here's the Peter one.
Superchargers, San Diego Superchargers, Diego Superchargers, San Diego Superchargers.
Yep.
Think about that.
It almost sounds like I spiked his milk bottle with some alcohol. He sounds drunk the way he's singing it like that.
San Diego.
Yeah, and then he goes, "What do you think of that?" Oh, good.
Was he like 3 when you did
He
that?
must have been 3, yeah. So I got to make some bets to get it. I'm Rosen 13, but I think I'm going to get 3 from you tonight. So at least I'm on the way. So we think Krill's fine. He'll be back. We had an overtime loss, or was it a shootout loss? I get them confused.
Shootout loss against Calgary. And I will say, it's hard to evaluate coaching, specifically in hockey, right? Football, it's a little bit easier to evaluate coaching. So whenever the team's winning or losing, it's always hard to say, hey, are they really well coached? Are they really, when they're losing, people like to jump on the coaching. And I'm like, is it the coaching or is it the players? I will say their response Saturday, when you got your Kaprizov's out, Zuccarello's out, they were pretty shorthanded offensively in that game. They came out and played hard. And, they kind of only have one scoring line to work with that Boldy line. But they played a pretty darn good game for what they had Saturday in Calgary and at least salvaged a point out of it.
Yeah.
So, and they've been doing it pretty consistently. So it's hard not to say that this team is responding to the coaching they're receiving.
Now, here's my favorite over the entire weekend. My favorite, I don't know what you'd call it, result or. So do you remember when we talked about how Suhan and Lavelle Neal III basically blame me for convincing Twins fans that it was because of my constant badgering of the Twins not spending any money is why the Pohlads finally decided to sell. And they both came to the determination that the only reason I was critical of the Pohlad spending habits had nothing to do with what I really felt. It was to play to my audience. In other words, I know what my audience wants to hear, so I'm going to give them the red meat that they're searching for. So over the weekend, or maybe this was before the weekend, here's what I read. This is Lavelle Neal. Here's the headline of his column, 10B. Loons will have no trouble walking into L.A. and making Galaxy fans cry. Because he's a big soccer guy. And Lavelle Neal basically made the bold and brash prediction, Galaxy, you're in big trouble because you're playing the Loons. Final score last night, Galaxy 6, Loons 2.
You've got to be kidding me.
And I'm wondering, when Lavelle wrote that Loons will have no trouble walking into L.A. and making Galaxy fans cry, do you think he believed that? Or do you think he knew that's what his reading audience wanted to hear?
It's playing to the audience.
I think he was playing to the audience. The guy that accused me of playing to my audience, I don't have the courage of my convictions. I'm just playing to my audience. I think that's exactly what he was. Because how he could have thought the Galaxy, who's had the Loons number forever, how he could actually write that he thought the Galaxy players and fans were going to be crying at the end of the game. There's no way he could possibly have believed that, could he? I don't think he believed it. I think what he did was he fed his audience what they wanted to hear. Sad, really. I mean, either write what you believe or don't write at all, right?
I always love that.
Well, there's nobody that could have thought that the Loons were going to get past the Galaxy. I mean, I certainly didn't.
They scored 6. I'm not a soccer guy.
Yeah.
I'm a hockey guy. Were they pulling their goalie at the end of that game, or what happened there?
I don't know. I don't know.
How do you give up 6?
I don't know.
In a soccer game.
That's like, you know what that's like? The equivalent in football. That's like playing the Lions, and the Lions scored 6 touchdowns. Because that's like, a 1 point for a goal is no different than 6 points, right? They just give in football. They decided, we're not going to just count it as 1. We're going to count it as 6. I don't know, and how they came upon number 6, I don't know. And then we'll tack
That's
on
a 42-14 football game.
That's exactly what that is. That's a 42-14 football game. That's absolutely getting destroyed. And so maybe the Loons will be back at it again next year.
Wasn't a bad run for him.
It wasn't a bad run for you. Tomorrow, again, we have a truncated version of the Common Man program. The PJ Fleck Show will be on at 12 noon. Should be an interesting one, too. They did play Penn State. I'm not big for moral victories, and I'm not even giving them one. I'm just saying it was an entertaining football game. They've made some progress this year. They've had a couple of bad losses, but they've also had a couple of good wins, and they've played some ranked teams very well. So it'll be PJ Fleck tomorrow, of course. That'll be at the Tipsy Steer, along with Grim and JG. So that'll be tomorrow at 12. Tennessee will be here at 1 o'clock. Mark Rosen joins us at 2. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
You as well. We enjoyed our visit with you today. But don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. Stick around. A big ticket. JG, they're next, right here on The Fan.
Welcome back to the spotlight, young man.
And now till we meet again.
That is a cold-blooded connection.
Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Good night.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Minnesota!
Good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash. Wherever you are.
Well, you live by the dog, you die by the dog.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.